Hey there, it's Lara here. Welcome to Witchy Wednesday, your weekly astrology forecast. So today is September 23rd, 2020, and it is one day after the equinox. So that means that the sun has just moved from Virgo into Libra. When the sun tips into the sign of Libra, hits 0 degrees Libra, that marks the equinox. It's the autumnal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere where I am, and maybe where you are, or it's the spring equinox in the Southern Hemisphere. And so we're going to focus on talking about that today and on Libra season in general. And let me just start by saying this. It's going to be an atypical Libra season, definitely. And I'll get into all the details of why that is. But first, I will say I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. And if this is your first time to the channel, then I hope you stick around and, let me know how what I have to say resonates with you. You can do that by just leaving a comment below or hitting the thumbs up or hopefully subscribing to the channel. Okay. When I do these videos, I like to start off with where the moon is at and where she's headed for over the course of the week. So you can kind of keep track for yourself, and you can get a sense of, how that energy is feeling for you personally and playing out for you personally on the day-to-day. And if you're interested in sort of digging a little bit deeper with that, then you can go over to my website and you can download something that I made for free. It's sort of a get started guide on working with the moon. And so you can just head over there and just, put in your email and you'll get it. It's about a 10-minute audio and then a PDF that goes with it. So the moon is moving from Sagittarius to Capricorn today, as I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 23rd. Excuse me. Tickle in my throat. And then she's going to move into Aquarius on Saturday and eventually into Pisces on Monday. So at the equinox, the moon was in Sagittarius. And, again, if you're curious about, well, so what? The moon was in Sagittarius, big whoop-de-doo, right? But if you want to know sort of a little bit more about that, then you can check out that guide. And sometimes I go into further detail, particularly when we're talking about the new moons and the full moons in these videos, right? And next week's video will be all about the upcoming full moon in Aries, which is Libra's opposite sign. So yesterday we had the equinox officially, which again is when the sun reaches 0 degrees Aries. Now, some people will say that astrological equinox is when, they mark these occasions more when the sun hits the middle degrees of a sign. And when I'm thinking about these markers on what we call the wheel of the year, right, which is sort of a natural calendar used by the Celtic people, witches, pagans, this kind of thing. So, and really lots of ancient peoples who were very connected to the earth used some form of this kind of more natural calendar, right? I wrote about this in a blog post yesterday, the first blog post I've written in 3 years. I could not even believe when I went back to check that. Anyways, I won't ramble on too much about that, but if you're interested in reading that, and what brought me back to, writing a blog post, you can check that out. I'll put the link to it below. So the point is, what I was saying is that, so on the Celtic wheel of the year, and if I was, thinking ahead of time, I would have had one here to show you, but you can look it up, witch's wheel, Celtic wheel. There are 8 different holy days, Sabbats, 8 different points on the year that mark sort of the shifting of energies, right? There's eight festivals. So we've got the equinoxes and the solstices, right? There are 2 of each of those. And so that's 4 points on the wheel. And then we have another 4, what we call cross quarter days, right? And so when I think of these things, I don't think of them as being necessarily, on a particular day. They are initiated on particular days, but they're more like seasons. And so between now, which is the equinox, also called Mabon, right, for witches, pagans, we look at this between now and the next holy day or holiday, which is Samhain, right, Halloween, in our modern sort of secular world. So this whole phase is this energy of Libra, and then we'll shift into Scorpio season. So sometimes people get a little bit panicky, and I used to do this too when I first started diving deeper into all of this, where it was like, you have to mark the actual day, and you have to do all the things on the day, sort of thing. But I don't see it so much that way anymore. It's more of a process of a season. When we're looking at the natural cycles, and when we look at nature doesn't. Nature's very cyclical, right? So although sometimes it can seem to us that the seasons change suddenly, like it seemed like that here, to be honest, where it was summer and then it wasn't. But really, if you're really paying attention, which is a big part of honoring and recognizing the natural cycles, and using the wheel of the year, then you'll notice the changes coming, the subtle changes coming, right? And so it's cyclical, is my point. And so Libra season, right, is ushered in at the equinox. And usually, we think of Libra season, just the energy of Libra in general. Libra is a cardinal air sign, and it's very much associated with equilibrium, right? Balance, equality, justice, moderation, these sorts of things, and harmony. I don't know if I said that already. It's very much about, at Libra season, Libra being an air sign, things tend to, they feel a bit lighter. The focus is on, pleasant conversation and maybe beautifying our homes for some of us at this time of year, and things that are pleasurable, paying attention to aesthetic. I thought actually something, I'll just share something brief with you. I found myself, and I didn't even do it consciously. I go through these periods where sometimes I used to wear like more jewelry, right? And then I go through these periods where like I don't wear so much, and then all of a sudden, the other day I was, yesterday, I was getting dressed, and I just suddenly found myself, putting on, I hadn't worn a necklace in a while. I had like these kinds of things, a bracelet. And then I started chuckling to myself because I was like, oh, it's Libra season. So, we pay attention to these things, consciously or unconsciously, I think, if you're in tune with that, Libra likes nice things. It likes a good aesthetic, right? A pleasing, harmonious aesthetic. And so we can pay more attention to that. Sometimes we're like switching out the wardrobe at this time of year. And so, on the surface, that's Libra. And but like all things, like all signs, Libra has a shadow side, right? And that has to do with extremes, like vacillating, right? To extremes, being very, very social and then completely withdrawing, for example. It has to do with codependence in relationship. I am only happy if you're happy, or how can I sacrifice myself to make you happy? Being, your kind of comfort level being completely dictated by the comfort level of the people around you, right? So that can be Libra too. Libra can also be, on the shadow side, very indecisive, very sitting on the fence, waffling, not taking a stand when a stand is required. It can be about projecting onto others too, our own issues onto others, right? So I think this Libra season, we may witness and experience, and maybe even, put out there ourselves, more of the shadow side of Libra. We're going to have to be very conscious to really operate in a way that is the more kind of, the sort of higher vibration of Libra. And I hesitated there because I don't want you to think that means I'm having a bit of an issue these days with toxic spirituality and with, just this notion that if we just all vibe, if we just all vibe on a higher frequency, then, everything's going to be all good. And it's like, there's an element of truth to that, but there's a lot more to the story, right? There's a lot more to the story than that. And, spiritual bypassing and toxic spirituality, and in my opinion, it's all got to go. But anyway, that's why I hesitated using that word. So, and that, my stance on that may or may not resonate with you. And that's okay. But that's where I'm at with all of that. And part of the reason for that is because been there, done that, right? To make a very long story short, I really dabbled in toxic spirituality for some time. And so having been really down that road and realizing the damage it can do, and realizing that it wasn't the answer to all my problems, I shifted gears. So speaking from personal experience, that's where I'm at with it. So shadow side of Libra. And I said to you, this will be an atypical Libra season. So first off, I'm going to show you the chart. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think that is. So here's the chart. I'm just, kind of riffing today too. I don't have too many notes made here, but so here's the chart for actually yesterday, because I drew up the chart for the equinox, which was yesterday, right? Tuesday, the 22nd. And officially that was at 9:31 a.m. Eastern time. So you can adjust accordingly. And that's when the sun entered Libra. And so there's the sun, over here, right? At 0 Libra. Right now, it's at 1 degree Libra because the sun moves 1 degree a day, about 1 degree a day. And what you're going to notice here is, or if you're not noticing on your own, I'll point it out to you. There is this kind of red triangle here, right? And so what's going on is that the sun in Libra is opposing, and will oppose, I guess, these planets and asteroids right here in Aries across the sky. So we've got Chiron, so it'll ping off Chiron first. Then we have Eris and Lilith and Mars, which is retrograde right now. We've talked a lot about Mars retrograde in past videos. So that's going on. There's that opposition. But here's Mercury also in Libra, right? Further on at this point. So has made some contact with some of this energy and is pretty much opposing Mars right now. And Mercury is going to retrograde. It's going to move into Scorpio first, and then at about 11 degrees of Scorpio on November 13th, it's going to station retrograde, and it's going to move all the way back to 25 of Libra. So almost where it's at right now. Okay, so that's going on. Then we've got, of course, right, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas, Athena up here in Capricorn. And this energy, right, Capricorn, Aries, Libra, and Cancer down here are cardinal signs. The cardinal signs square each other. So what's happening is the Sun, Mercury, Mars, Chiron, Lilith, Eris are making a square to mostly Saturn, Pluto, but they're gonna square all the energy in Capricorn. Okay, so I'm gonna take this away from my face now to talk to you some more. So there's a T-square going on, right? Tense energy, stuff that needs to be worked through. Like a T-square quite literally is something's butting up against these two energies, and it's like, which way are we going to go? What are we going to do? How are we going to resolve this tension? So that's our job during Libra season. And I guess Libra is well suited for that, right? Because Libra is the symbol for Libra are the scales, right? The balance scales, the scales of justice. And we know, for example, that we had the passing in the U.S. of Justice, right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And so the tension is high to see what's going to happen there. And right before the election. And, so that's, there's a real emphasis on those qualities of Libra: justice, equality, harmony, balance, relating, all of these things. And Libra season is very much a time for us personally to be focusing on our relationships, right? On relating, on how we relate. And I like to think of that as not just how we relate to other people, although that's a huge part of it. And that can be other people, from your significant other to your kids, to your close friends and your family members and your business relationships and your workmates and the person at the grocery store and, whatever. Like it's how you relate to others. I also see it very much as, because it's on this axis of relationship, right? Libra is about the other, Aries is about the self. I also see it as how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the outside world, in general. So it's a time to reflect on that, to sort of focus on those things, to, how are we doing in relationship? How are we doing relationship? What maybe needs to be brought more into balance and to harmony? Are things in our relationships fair? Are we giving the other person either too little, sort of, in terms of, a sort of a listening ear, for example, or are we allowing the other people in our lives to take precedent over our own personal needs and this kind of thing. So, it's just a time to think about that and to think about how you feel about the quality of your relationships in general. And do adjustments need to be made there? Do difficult conversations need to be had? There is no doubt with Mars in retrograde right now in Aries that there are tense communications, right? And Mercury there as well, like I said, in Libra, opposing Mars. Tension in communications, hot-headed communications, things reaching a boiling point, tension in communications, and sometimes that comes out, well, it comes out in different ways, right? It can come out in anger and rage, warranted or not, justified or not. It can come out in a very passive-aggressive way. Very passive aggressively. And, I think being passive aggressive comes natural to many of us because we are not, particularly women, we are not, it's not really acceptable for us to get angry, to disagree, to say, you know what, no, that's not the way it is, or that's not the way I feel about it, or you are hurting my feelings, or you are, what you did is not okay, the boundary setting. So, anyway, any number of things, right? So I think being passive aggressive comes kind of naturally to a lot of us. And I think it's a time where we may have to work on that, on being more true in our communications, more authentic. And that requires some practice, and it can feel very uncomfortable, right? I think it was RBG who said, speak the truth even if your voice shakes, right? So we may have to take a page from her book at this point in time. And I think that, when we can truly say our piece in a sort of a way that honors the other, but also ourselves, and we can clear the air in that way, then I think, our relationships become more authentic. So, I'm rambling here, I know, but I'm just taking a look at my notes quick and seeing if there's anything else I want to share with you before we move a little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I also wanted to mention that the ruler of Libra, right, Venus, is moving through Leo right now. And I didn't show you that. And there's actually this configuration called a yod happening from Neptune and Jupiter and hitting Venus, right? And so without saying too much about that, essentially, a yod can be this sort of discordant energy. And so I think, all that to say that it's really highlighting this yod to Venus, the ruler of Libra, is highlighting that potential for discord, and that uncomfortable kind of, a yod involves two quincunxes, and those energies don't have anything in common. They don't see eye to eye. The task of working through a yod, and anybody who has one in their chart will know this, right? If you have one or more, which I happen to, the task is trying to reconcile two things that don't want to fit, that don't see each other. It's no small task. So that's, I think that's highlighting the issues that we are going to see coming to the forefront during Libra season. I mentioned to you that Mercury will station retrograde on October 13th, and I'll talk about that more when we get closer. But the point here is that it's going to station 11 Scorpio, move back into Libra. And while it's in Scorpio, it's going to directly oppose Uranus in Taurus. So we may have some surprises in terms of, Mercury related things, communications, this sort of thing. And Mercury will station direct on November 3rd at 25 degrees of Libra. And if that day sounds familiar to you, no doubt, if you live in the US, it will. But if you don't, it's because November 3rd is the US election. So interesting times. And Mercury, as I pointed out, is just entering the shadow phase, right? So pay attention. Starting now, pay attention to what's kind of starting to leak into your awareness and into your sphere when it comes to things like perspectives, thinking, communications, commerce, mobility, tech things, even electronics, that sort of thing. But really, in terms of the communications that are happening, the messages that are being put out there and exchanged, that sort of thing. Pay attention. So as we move through Libra season, the house that Libra sits in your chart is going to be lit up, right? Because the sun is moving through that area of the chart. And so it's a good time to focus specifically, when we're talking about, us as individuals, on creating more balance and harmony and working through some of that tension, right? In relation to those themes that encompass the house that Libra is sitting in for us. And working through that tension of the cardinal houses in your chart, right? Because Aries, what's going on in Aries, right? I mentioned to you already. And Capricorn, of course. And then Cancer is on the opposite end of Capricorn. So working through that tension of those areas of your chart is likely going to be a theme. So if you have planets in the cardinal signs, specifically, you're getting a bit of a workout. And if you're, just before I dive into the specific signs, if your rising sign is a cardinal sign, right? So that would be Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Then it is the 1st, 7th, 4th, and 10th houses that are being triggered for you. If you're a mutable rising sign, so Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then the houses that are being, more triggered for you are the 2nd, 8th, 5th, and 11th. And then if you're a fixed sign rising, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, then houses 3, 9, 6, and 12 are the ones that are getting lit up most for you, right? Involved in that sort of T-square that we talked about. So let's go through each of the signs briefly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight where Libra sits in your chart. This is for rising sign, right? Or ascendant, first and foremost. I'm using whole sign houses in these general readings. So the best thing to do is, if you know your chart specifically, then have a look at what house or houses Libra takes up for you. And but in whole sign, it will be what I'm referring to here. And so I'll talk about briefly the specific themes related to that house. So what's being lit up for you over Libra season. And then I'll just give you the other 3 houses that are being triggered specifically for you. And you can, if you know your chart, then you can kind of dive a little bit deeper on your own. If you don't know your chart, I'm happy to take a look at it for you. Just reach out at my website, okay, let's get started. We're going to start with Libra because Libra, obviously, right? It's your season. Happy birthday, Libra, which I don't think I said yet. So it's your season, Libra, and the sun is moving through your sign. So the first house for you, right? And it is, if you're a Libra rising. And so it is lighting up all things Libra. So things that are personal to you. Including your physical body, your physical vitality and health, your way of coming at the world and the way that the world perceives you, right? Your general kind of trajectory through life and your response to stimuli kind of thing, right? So it's when the sun moves through this area of the chart, it's a bit of a rebirth on some level, right? So there's an opportunity here to really renew yourself, right? In a sense. And so for you, Libra, the other three houses that are being triggered are the 7th, the 4th, and the 10th in that T-square I was talking about earlier. And so, we are looking to Libra during this season for how to handle things. And ideally, Libra at its most optimal, right? How do we reconcile two opposing, viewpoints? How can we moderate that? How can we bring more equality and justice and harmony into the world, into our lives? This sort of thing, right? So that's what's going on for you, Libra. And next we've got Virgo, where Libra sits in your 2nd house. So the 2nd house is what's lit up for you at this time of the year. And the 2nd house speaks to your personal resources. So very much about your finances, and the money you make from what you do in the world, right? Your skills and talents. It's also very much about what you value, what you place value and importance on, and how you value yourself, right? Your sense of self-worth. And so this may be something that really comes up for you around this time. And you have an opportunity to shine a light on these things and work through them and use the energy of Libra to maybe, ideally smooth things over here by the end of the transit a little bit. So the other three houses for you, Virgo rising, that are being hit in this T-square are the 8th, the 5th, and the 11th, right? So you can take a look at those. And, if you don't know what themes fit into those houses, you can pretty easily kind of Google, 5th house, and it will give you just the basics, you'll find lots of information there, but use your Virgo discernment, right? In terms of where you get your information. I don't have to tell you that, Virgo, but okay, so that's for you. And next we've got Leo. So Libra sits in your 3rd house in whole sign, right? So if you're a Leo rising, you've got Libra in the 3rd house. And so as the sun moves through this area of the chart, it lights up all things communications, right? Things related to your immediate environment and the people in it. So, and issues around, or themes around commerce and marketing and, sometimes the people that you interact with on the day-to-day. Traditionally, those are things like siblings and neighbors and cousins and such, but it can also be, peers, teammates, anybody you're kind of communicating with on the regular. And, mobility is the 3rd house. The 3rd house is also about learning and usually teaching and learning, but it's more of sort of at the basics or the early learning kind of stages of things, right? So that's for you, Leo. And next we've got Cancer, where it's the 4th house that's being lit up for you with Libra, with the sun moving through Libra at this time of year. So for you, this highlights things that are very close to home for Cancer, because Cancer, is at home in the 4th house. And so the things that are highlighted are themes around home and family and ancestry and your place of living, real estate, oftentimes like the mother figures in your life, more nurturing sort of female figures, right? And your sense of emotional security. So this is where the light of the sun is shining over the course of Libra season. And then we've got that tension happening from the T-square that I talked about, right? And those other houses that are factoring in for you most significantly are the 10th, the 1st, and the 7th. So that's where the tension is, right, for you, Cancer. So I'm going to move on to Gemini now. So Gemini, for you, Libra sits in the 5th house. So as the sun transits your 5th house, oh, somebody's mowing their lawn. Hopefully you can't hear that. Anyway, as the sun transits your 5th house, it shines a light on, themes that have to do with your creative self-expression, with your sense of sort of specialness in the world. It's very much about anything you create. It's about children, your own children, or children that you work with or are associated with. And it's about what brings you pleasure and what sparks joy for you, right? And so that's where the sun is shining its light this month. And you've got the tension happening for you in the 11th, 2nd, and 8th houses, right? So the 5th, the 11th, 2nd, and 8th are involved in this sort of T-square tension. And so some things are no doubt going to be highlighted there and need to be worked through over Libra season. So that's for you, Gemini. Next, we've got Taurus. So Taurus, for you, the sun is moving through your 6th house. Libra sits in the 6th whole sign house for you. And so this is shining a light on your daily routine, so your work routine, right? Your health routine, things that you do on the day-to-day, and how you take care of the details and check off the ticky boxes, on the day-to-day. And this can be paid or unpaid work. It is about, what you are, how you are in service and what you're devoted to. And so, these are the things that are highlighted as the sun moves through this house for you, Taurus. And then the other houses implicated in this tension of the T-square are the 12th, 3rd, and 9th. So that's, those 4 houses are where the tension is sort of needing to be worked through. Next, we've got Aries. Aries, for you, the sun is moving through your 7th house of one-to-one relationships. So Libra is at home in the 7th house, actually. And for you, Aries, it's very much about these Libra themes in relation to how you relate with others, whether that be, marriage partner, significant other, close friends, family members, business partners, anybody you're in close relationship with. This can include people that you have a bit of a rivalry with as well. And the 7th house also speaks to themes around contracts, any kind of contracts and agreements. And so this is what's lit up at this time of year for you as the sun moves through Libra. And then Aries, you've got the tension happening from the other 3 houses, 1st, 4th, and 10th, right? And so those 4 energies are kind of in this tense conversation. And, we spoke about why that is in the introduction. And so this is what you're tasked with working through this month. Next, we've got Pisces. Pisces, for you, the sun is moving through your 8th house, right? Libra sits in the 8th for you. And so it's lighting up themes, 8th house themes, which have to do with the resources that you share with other people, and so this can be things on a sort of practical, real world level, like taxes and insurance and, bursaries, wills, inheritance, anything like that, right? Debt, resources that you share with other. It can also, when I think of resources, I don't just think about money. I think about your time and your energy as well. The 8th house is very much about our entanglement with other people, right? How we merge with others. And it's also about, our sort of deep-seated psychological issues. So these are the themes that have a light shone on them over the course of Libra season for you. And then you've got some tension happening, right, from the 2nd, the 5th, and the 11th houses. And that's what needs to be sort of delicately worked through over the course of Libra season for you, Pisces. Next, we've got Aquarius. So Aquarius, for you, the sun is traveling through your 9th house during Libra season. And the 9th house speaks to themes of higher learning. So this is like learning beyond the basics, so anything that you do kind of after your basic studies, and that can be college, university, or it can be online classes that you're doing, or you're teaching something, or you're learning something. It has very much to do with your worldview, your philosophy, your belief system, and things that impact that, the people and things that impact that. So which is why like foreign cultures fit in here, foreign travel fits in here, because when we connect with people in places that are very different from us, we shift our, or at least we have the opportunity to shift our beliefs, our view on things, right? And so also it has to do with publishing and that sort of thing in the 9th house. You're getting your message out there. So these are the things that are lit up for you. And then the tension, the other houses in tension with the 9th are the 3rd, the 6th, and the 12th. And so that is where, some tension needs to be resolved over the course of this Libra season and, probably beyond. But all right, next we've got Capricorn. Capricorn, the 10th house is what's lit up for you during Libra season, and that's your house. And so, you're familiar with these themes. It has to do with your public reputation and persona. It has to do with, very much about authority and authority figures and your own authority, the legacy you wish to leave, your career and this sort of thing. And so this is where the light is being shone. And then you've got some tension with the 4th, the 1st, and the 7th houses, right? In relation to the 10th, where Libra sits. And so this is the tension that needs to be worked out for you over the course of Libra season. Next, we've got Sagittarius. The sun is traveling through your 11th house during Libra season, Sag. And so that highlights themes of friendship groups, the collective in general, your hopes and dreams for the future and the people that can help you get there, any kind of, organization, club, association, network, that kind of thing, right? Is being highlighted for you. And then there's the tension coming from 5th, 2nd, and 8th houses, which are involved, because of the Mars and the Capricorn piece there. So there's some tension in those areas that need working out. And Libra season is here to help us do that. And maybe in a bit of a non-traditional Libra way, though. Okay, next we've got Scorpio, last but not least in this case. So Scorpio, for you, the sun is moving through your 12th house during Libra season. And because it's almost Scorpio season, right? And so the sun is when the sun is in our 12th house, it's a time for us to retreat and to kind of move inward. And it highlights things that are in this hidden area of our chart, related to endings, related to what goes on behind closed doors, related to, sort of the unseen areas of life. And this can have to do with things like, how we sabotage ourselves as well. And so because when Scorpio season comes, it's your chance for a rebirth. So right now you're in that phase of retreating and preparing for your, resurrection, if you will. And so Scorpio, it's 12th house for you. And then the tension that's coming is from the 6th, the 3rd, and the 9th houses, right? So that T-square, right? And the Aries and the Capricorn piece, and what needs to be worked through and worked out during this time. So that is what I have to say to all of you this week in terms of the Equinox and Libra season. And if you are somebody who marks Mabon, then happy Mabon to you. And, I will be back next week and we're going to talk about the full moon that's coming up in Aries. Okay, take good care. Bye for now.